All right, this is fast becoming one of my favorite card tricks because this is just, I don't know, this is kind of the perfect card trick because it can be done with a regular deck, a borrowed deck, in fact, if you want. The deck is completely shuffled by your spectator if you want. And it's it's impromptu, and yet it's a nice little sequence of events. It's almost a little miniature magic show. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to do a card trick for our spectators here. And we tell them, go ahead and shuffle the deck. Of course, they can do that. Say, now, I'm not going to do a mind reading trick because mind reading is a little too easy. You might not know this. What's harder to do as a mentalist is to predict the future. Because mind reading, at least I have some kind of brainwave that I can pick up on. But predicting the future, I kind of have to go by feeling. And in this trick, I'm going to kind of go by the feeling of the cards. The cards are going to give me a certain sense of what's going to happen in the future. So I'm going to look for a card that I think kind of gives me that feeling. It takes me a minute, though, because let's see. I don't like any of those. I'm going to look through all the cards, so it's just going to take me a minute because I'm looking for that certain kind of card that gives me a sense of some future incident, right? So none of these, I don't like any of those. But I'm narrowing it down. So let me find a card that I think is just giving me the right vibe here. It's a predict. Yeah, okay. I think it's either that one or it could be this one. I haven't decided. I've got it narrowed down to two cards. I think I'm going to go with my gut instinct, my first one. That's going to be my prediction card. Okay. Let me explain to you what just happened. We shuffled the deck. You shuffled the deck, cut it up. All that's all messed up. And I went through and I found one card that I believe is going to be indicative of something that is in the future. Let me explain. Well, this is a deck of 52 cards. One of the cards is here. That only leaves 51 here, of course. Among these 51 cards, there are 3 siblings that match this card. What's a sibling? Well, every card has 3 siblings. If this is the ace of spades, the other 3 aces are still in the deck. The clubs, hearts, and the diamonds are still here. And that's true for every card. So I'm hoping that the card that I just predicted matches one of the siblings in here that you will choose. But again, this is a little too easy because there are 3 of them among these 51 cards. So I'm going to do something a little more challenging today. I'm going to actually remove some cards from the deck like this, just randomly, and I'm going to actually have you tell me when to stop removing cards. As I remove cards from the deck like this, and I put them in this little packet, we're going to set them aside. These are the cards I can't use in the trick. I'll be left with whatever you say. So you're going to say stop at any time, understanding that every time I move a card to this hand, the trick gets harder for me to do because I have fewer cards to work with. So I'm going to do this, and eventually the spectator will say stop wherever they want. Okay, so that means we've eliminated a large number of cards. That means I can only do this trick with this many cards, which is not 51. It is 51 minus however many are here. So hopefully you're going to select a card from this packet that's one of the siblings of my prediction. But we got to make it harder because it's still a little bit easy. What I want to do is get this really mixed up. So we're going to shuffle this little packet from which you will select a card. Okay, so now that this is all shuffled, I'm going to riffle down through the deck very slowly, like this, one card at a time. The spectator will have a free choice of where they say stop. So we're going to go like this. You say stop somewhere, they say stop. Okay, so I can see that card, so you want the one underneath it. So there's the card you chose out of this packet, right? So I think we better recap. What we have now are 2 cards here. My prediction, and then from a small shuffled section of the deck, you chose a card. I'm hoping that your card is one of the siblings of my prediction. If it is, would that be a great trick? I think it would be. I think it would be. But let's see. For the first time, let's look at the card that you chose, which was the Oh, wait a minute. You chose a 5. That's unfortunate. Because I really wanted this to be a great trick. And now I'm going to have to go a little different direction here. I told you this was really hard to do. Maybe we removed too many cards from the packet. I don't know. I'll tell you what. Instead of a great trick, I'll just do a pretty good trick. What if I took the deck, and since you chose a 5, What if I counted down 5 cards like this? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Would it be a really pretty good trick if this was a 5? Ah, there you go. A pretty good trick. A pretty good trick. You chose a 5, and there was 5 cards down in the shuffle deck, and they match. It's just okay, I know. I really wanted this to be a great trick, not a pretty good trick. And what would have made it a great trick is if my prediction had also been a 5. Now that is a great trick. Good trick, great trick. Thank you very much. However, it would be even better, don't you think, if we could take a good trick and a great trick and make it an incredibly amazing trick? I think the only way to do that is if we found the other sibling right here, the 5 of hearts. And now that is an amazing trick. All right, let's see the workings on this incredible little trick. So everything that I said to you at the beginning here, this is a shuffled deck, a borrowed deck. They can shuffle it. I didn't say there's no setup, you notice, but there kind of isn't and there kind of is. What does that mean? Well, I didn't put no setup in the description because that's not entirely true. There is a setup to this. It's just not what you think. The setup happens during the trick, right under their noses. And it's not much of a setup. It's actually pretty easy to do. I'm going to teach it to you in about like 4 phases. Because basically this trick is a force, but you're forcing 4 cards of your choice, by the way. Now, there are some intricacies to this that will make more sense as we go on. But let me just start by saying, when you get the deck back, you know, it'll be all shuffled. You don't know where the cards are, obviously, what order they're in. But when you pick up the deck, you're going to decide which of the cards you're going to use as your four of a kind. And here's how I do that. First of all, I'm going to use a card's value of somewhere between 4 and 8. You don't have to. As you see, when you learn this trick, you can do it any way you want to. I don't like to use an ace or a 2 because it's not enough counting. And I don't want to use court cards because they're too high and it's confusing what numbers they are for some people. So the card I'm going to force is either going to be probably, I could do a 3, but I prefer like a 4, 5, 6, 7, something like that. As you can see, I did a 5 in that one. A lot of it will depend on the condition of the cards when I get them back. And here's what I'm doing. As I'm looking through the cards like this, the first few cards, I'm going to decide at this point which cards I'm going to use. So as you see, I'm going through here. In this case, and it'll be different each time because it's shuffled. I see a couple of 2s. I don't want 2s and aces. I could use the 3, but it's a little low. But here I'm seeing a 7 and a 4 and a 9. Any one of those would work, right? And here's what I need to do. I need to decide, okay, I think I'm going to go ahead and use the 7 in this case. Here's what I have to do. As I'm looking through the cards, I'm saying, I got to decide, and I'm going to be looking at all the cards. It makes perfect sense for me to be looking at the cards because I'm trying to decide what my predictions are going to be. What I'm really doing is I'm going to take this card. In this case, I've decided on using 7s. I'm going to put this card right here in the front of the pack as I'm looking through them, and it doesn't look weird for you to move cards around. So I'm just moving to the front of the packet. What I'm going to do is this, and this is the first phase, okay? The first thing you got to do. And since I chose a 7, that's important. I'm going to remove some cards and put them down on the table, but I'm going to do it like this. I'm counting in my head 7 cards because this is a 7. In the demonstration, I did it with 5 cards because I forced a 5, right? But in this case, we're going to go like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. They can't hear me doing that. I'm doing that silently. And I just decide, I say, I don't think I like any of these cards. Now, what I've just done, step 1, is I've just put the force card on top of 6 other cards, okay? That'll make sense in a second. Very easy to do, right? I just decided on 7 and I put those down and said, I don't really like those. Now here's the next phase, the next step. I'm going through and I'm looking for another 7, my next force card. And I'm going, I'm just not really picking up the right vibe. And I just found one. As I'm going through it, I just found the 7. And as I'm going through it, what I'm going to do is I'm going to move that one to the face of the deck too. I'm going, I just haven't decided. Let's see, no, none of these. And again, I'm going to take this 7, the second one now, and I need to get it on top of that one with some other cards. It doesn't matter how many this time. So I'm just going to take this 7, and then I'm just going to take approximately 7, 8, 9 cards. Doesn't really matter. Just a packet of cards and say, I don't like any of these either. Okay, That's ends step 2. Now what I have in this packet are 6 cards, then my 7th card, which is a 7, and then on top of that a 7, and then a bunch of indifferent cards. Okay, so that was really easy to do, and it looks normal. If you play it back, you can see it didn't look funny at all. Now I got to go on to step 3, and I'm still deciding on what my force card, I'm sorry, not my force card, I've already decided on that. I'm still deciding on what my prediction card is going to be from the audience standpoint, and here's what I do. I go through and I find my 3rd 7, and when I do, I just out jog it, obviously like this, and go, I kind of like the feel of this one. And what I've done is I found another 7, okay? And I got to go through and I got to find another 7. And what I need to do, this one happened to land on the top, so I'm going to make this point this way. When I come to it like this, so I found my first 7, I also at the same time am going to look for my 4th 7, which happens to be right here, okay? So this card's a 7 right here. They don't know that. This card's a 7 right here. And this is the one I outjogged, which is also a 7. And what I do is I take the next card out, just whatever card it is, the one above the 7, my 4th 7. I take this one and I raise it out. And I go, I think I'm trying to decide between these 2 cards. Now, I'm really not. What I'm really doing is I want to make sure that that 4th 7 ends up on the top of the deck. So I'm using this as an excuse. I'm going, I kind of like this one. I take it and I put it in the front of the deck and say, no, I've changed my mind. I'm going to go with my first instinct and I'm going to put this card down. Okay, so that sounds more confusing than it really is. All I'm doing is I'm going through the deck and I need to end up with my prediction card being a 7 and the other 7 on the top of the deck, however you want to do that, okay? I'm going to do that part again right now because I know that that was a little bit wordy. So I'm like this. There are 2 7s in here somewhere. I got those set up, ready to go. I'm going through here and I'm looking for that 3rd 7, and when I find it, I go, okay, I kind of like that one, and I kind of like this one, okay? This one is not a 7, but the one beneath it is. The one right here is. So I'm going to go, no, I don't like that one. I'm going to go with this one. And I just put my 7 here. This is now the 4th 7, and we're ready to go. Now, the next step is to take this, and this is very important to remember. This rest of the deck, just throw it on top of our little stack there, okay? The stack part needs to be on the bottom for now. I'm going to go like this, and I'm going to recap. I'm going to say, look, you chose a card, we shuffled the deck, all that stuff to remind them how we got where we were. And of course, it will go much faster in the performance. The tutorial takes a little longer. So I tell them, okay, if you chose a card, and then I do this. I say, you know, there are still 51 cards left in the deck here. So I'm hoping that you find one of the 3 siblings of your card. And I'll need to explain to them what that means. We're looking for another card that matches the same value of that one. But 3 out of 51 is a little bit too easy for me. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start removing cards. Now remember, we have a stack on the bottom half here. Do you remember that stack? There's 6 cards, are 7, another 7, and then the rest of them are indifferent cards. So when I pick up the deck and I start to remove cards into this hand, what I'm doing is I'm reversing the order. And when I'm going to do this in exposed view, here's what I'm actually doing. I'm taking the cards and I'm simply going like this until I get to those 2 7s. And when I get to those 2 7s, I go a little bit and I say, now I want you to tell me where to stop, because they can stop me any time now after we went past those 7s. Because what did we just do? We just put that first 7 is going to end up 7 cards down. So we go like this and you say, I want you to tell me when to stop. And I go kind of slow so that I can explain to them every time I move a card into this pile, the trick's going to be harder for me to do because I have fewer cards to work with. In reality, it doesn't matter where they stop. You just want enough cards to play with over here. So they say stop, and now we go, okay, we're not going to use these cards. Well, we just got set up. 7th card down is our force, and the one after it is our force. And the card on top of this one is our force, which we're going to do right now, a force. So we've got our prediction card. We've got our little double 7s ready to go. And then now it's time for them to select the card. And what I like to do is shuffle it up. Why not? Let's make it hard. Of course, as you probably know, I'm not really shuffling the cards. Well, I am. There's just one card I'm not shuffling, that's the top card because I'm doing that retention shuffle. If you don't know what that is, I've got a video about that, but it's easy to do. You go like this. When you take these cards, you're going like this. If you don't like that, you can do this kind of a shuffle where you throw a bunch of cards here and then throw these back on top. You can also do this, and you can kind of shuffle them, just making sure that the top card, the force card, stays on top. Now you're ready to force a card. And you don't even have to do the force that I used. I used a slip cut force. I said, say stop, like this, say stop. And you said, okay, you don't take this one. I can see that one. You take the one underneath it, which is actually the card I'm trying to force. You can force it that way. Or you can do a crisscross. You say, okay, I want you to cut the cards wherever you want. Okay, now remember, you got to cut them anywhere you want. We got a prediction card. We got this thing going on. We throw them off a little bit. We say, okay, now we're going to take out the card you cut to, and we're going to put it there. So however you want to force the card, that's what you want to do. I like doing this because I think it looks good. Okay, so now where are we at? We've forced the 7. We have our prediction 7, and we have those 2 7s over here waiting to come into play. They don't know. This is important. Remember last time when we had these cards and we threw them on top? We're going to do the opposite now. We want to make sure our stack goes on top. We set these aside as if they're not part of the trick anymore. We're just going to look at our 2 cards and build it up as if I made a prediction. Let's see what you chose. Obviously, I'm the magician and I'm always right. And this is the sucker gag part of the trick. Say, let's look at the card that you chose. And I always pretend like I'm starting to say something else. Let's look at it. Looks like you chose the 8. You chose the 7 of diamonds. Well, that's a 7. Well, boy, let's see. And I got to act like I'm kind of in trouble. How am I going to get out of this? You don't want to drag it out too much, but you're going to go, wait a minute. I'm a magician. I can recover from this. What would you think if I just did a pretty good trick? Now I'm going to take this deck back, and remember, we have our little stack on top. What's the 7th card down? Our force card. So we're ready to do that part of the trick. Well, since you chose a 7, let's do a little different trick. What if I did this? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Would it be amazing if this was in fact a 7? It would be amazing. Now there, your first applause, so to speak. Now let's think about what I have going right now. Remember the next card? It's also a 7. So let's keep it on top. Set it aside. Looks like the trick is done. It's not great because we didn't really show this card. So we kind of go, well, that's a pretty good trick, but it'd be an even better trick. And I like to pretend like this is the big finale. Okay, it would have been a great trick if this card had also been a 7. And then I really like to pretend like the trick is done. Look at a triple prediction. That is incredible. The prediction card matched. You chose a card freely. We counted down 7 and it's still matched. And you can pretend like the trick is all done. This is the best part I like about the trick. It's not. We can say, but you know what would have been really good? Is if these 3 siblings could find their 4th sibling and the 7 of spades is right there. Okay. So that is, in my opinion, that is a fantastic impromptu trick. You could actually borrow a deck of cards from somebody at their house, do this, and have a little magic show for them. I think it's really, really good. So there were some complicated steps there, sort of. Once you do it a couple of times, I guess it's not complicated. I think the real secret to doing this is keeping track of where everything is, mainly your 4 force cards, right? And again, let me give you a couple of tips. So you get a shuffled deck handed back to you, and you don't know what cards you're going to be looking at. And it doesn't really matter though, because you can fish through them. I just like to take, the first few that are on the bottom. So let's get this shuffled up, and let's see what happens this time. This time I might not use 7s. I might use something else. Let's see how the deck turns out. So I'm going through here, and I can see, okay, there's a jack, an ace, a 6, another ace. I don't like aces or court cards, but the 6, the 9, and the 4, that would be pretty good. There's a 7 again. So here I have 2 9s, but they're kind of close together. That may or may not work for me, but let's just do it with 9. I can go through here and say, okay, I'm just trying to think of what card. Let's see, which card do I want? So if I decide to use 9s, and I got a couple of them there, I'm going to move one of them down here like this. And then I'm going to go, now remember I got to count 9 cards, so I'm going to go like this. Now, it didn't work because my second 9 ended up in that packet. So you don't want to do that. See, so when you're looking for these cards, You want to make sure they're kind of spread out a little more so that you can do that. So now I got them shuffled up again, and I'm going like this. Look, there's 3 8s all in a row, kind of. I wouldn't want to do that. There's a couple of 5s. The other thing you can do is if you don't like what you're getting, just give it another quick shuffle. Say, I got to get a real feel for what the prediction is. This is much harder than mind reading. I don't have any brain waves here to pick up on, so I'm just going to go through here now. I just shuffled them up, and I can see now probably a good card to use would be the 8, because there's no other 8s around it, right? And all I have to do now is I move it to here, and I'm going to do my little count silently. You don't want them to know you're counting. It looks like you're just eliminating cards. Let's see. I don't like any of those. All I did was I counted 8 cards, making sure my 8 landed there. Now I'm going to go through, look for the next 8, which I just found. But I'm not going to show them that. I'm going to move it to the front of the deck again, because I want to say I don't like any of those, and I need this 8 to end up on top of this 8. So I'm putting it at the face of the deck like this. And what I'm really doing is I'm just counting a bunch of cards. There's my next 8, by the way, and go, okay, I don't like any of those either. I'm going to see if I can find a card that really gives me the right vibe. Now, in this case, I'm right at the 2 8s. It just happened to be right here. Well, that's great if that happens, but it doesn't always happen. Sometimes they'll, the second one will be, or the fourth one actually will be way down there or whatever. That's fine. You just go through it, take your time, and go, okay, I think I found one that I like. That's my third 8. I'm going to go through and see if I can. I'm not quite sure. I haven't quite made up my mind, and I'm going to go down and find that other 8. Let's see, where did I put it? Go down and find that other 8. Okay, and when I come to it, which I just did right here, I'm actually going to lift this card out. Of course, they can't see the card that I'm lifting out. The one in front of the 8, because I want this one to end up on the top of the deck. And I'm looking at it like this. So I've got an 8 here, and I got an indifferent card here, and I say, I can't decide on these two. Okay, I think I have just decided. I'm going to go with my first choice, my gut instinct, and put that down. And what did I do? I just situated the cards so that my 8 is here, I've got an 8 here, and I've got my double 8s in there. And now I'm ready to continue with the trick. Okay, just doing a little recap here. Remember, this time this goes on top of that. We can say, look, there's 51 cards here. I'm hoping you find the sibling, but let's remove some cards. I take these, and as I remove them, I don't tell them that I want to be stopped until I've gone past my force cards, which I just did. There's the 8, there's the 8. I'm going to go past. A couple say, you tell me when you want me to stop, and I explain to them why they're doing that, because we're removing cards, blah, blah, blah. They will remove some cards. They'll say, stop, okay. Put those down, and now I'm set up over here. I've got 7 cards down, and then the 8th one is the force card. Then there's another 8, right? So the 8th card down is an 8, and then the next card is an 8. And then I've got a packet here with an 8 on top. I'm ready to force it however I want to. So we can shuffle it first, and then we can force it. Say, okay, you can't take that one. You see that one. Take the one underneath it, and we move on. Okay, so the next thing to do is to just play up on it. But it's really important to keep track of where everything is. I got my 2 8s there, and I've got the stack 8 there. I need to make sure that ends up on top here, and I move it out of the way like we're not going to use it. And we can do this big sucker gag thing. All right, I'm sure I got it right. I'm sure I got it. Oh no, that's not what I was thinking. Can we do it a different way? I'm going to go count down my 8 now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. These can be discarded underneath because I've got another 8 here waiting for later. Ta-da, the trick's over. Well, not really. I actually knew what I was doing because that was an 8. Now it's really over. Couple of beats. Not really, because it's even super amazing. Wouldn't it be cool if that one was there too? All right, I kind of did a fast there for tutorial purposes, but you get the point. So just practice that. That one takes a little bit of practice because you got to remember to keep track of where everything is. Because it's impromptu, spontaneous, a borrowed shuffle deck, got a little sucker kick to it and a double surprise ending. Come on, doesn't get any better than that.